So let me talk to you about. We're going to get started in what's called CSS, which is the Cascade style sheets, and we're going to do this exercise in 3 parts with it. And I thought it'd be really simple to break this down to 3 parts, 3 separate parts with it. And I'm going to talk to you about this is the left-hand side here, and I'm not going to read this word for word for you because you have this document with you when I sent it to you with it. So. Again, CSS is an essential set of knowledge and skill that you will have to know when you get out in industry how to maintain other people's websites and code and all the stuff with it. So let me go down to some of the stuff that's very important with it. Besides what it's called, Cascade style sheets with it. It really came from the Zen world of the water fountain, like Cascade water falls. If you look at a stream, how things are falled, how things are flow with the water flow with it, and by the end of the Cascade style, the Cascade waterfalls, that's closest to the object with it, how it flows from higher to lower. Hierarchy with it, and that's the concept behind the CSS with it as well. So as you go through this, keep in mind that how CSS is displayed onto the screen with it as well, and how it's a type of layout that's control and manage really other websites pages with it as well. So it just helps to save a lot of work for a lot of the websites that's out there with it. Remember, 80%, at least 80% or 90% of the time that you are creating or maintaining other people's code is maintaining the CSS style guide with it as well. So that's where I want to get into some of the stuff that you're going to see out there in industry with it. You will see, you have to understand what an external is, what an inline is, or embedded, or something that is very, very embedded into the code, and what actually takes place when things are happening in there as well. So I want you to think of CSS as kind of like a dress code. I'm going to use this analogy with it. So let's say I ran Richland campus as a Catholic school, and I made everybody to wear uniform. So all the boys would wear ties, all the girls would wear bows and all the stuff in their hair with it, and the girls would be in skirts, boys would be in jackets and suits and all the stuff with it. It's very uniform, right? But that's the general outline for a CSS. But however, when you get to a gym class, you're not going to be wearing your uniform. You get to change into your gym clothes, right? So for that specific period or that specific class, you get to, inside that class, you get to change and wear your own clothes and with it because of that classroom with it. So that becomes another set of rules in that classroom that's being used with it. And let's say it happens to be in that same PE class that you get to participate in swimming. All right. So inside of swimming, the class is also divided in further groups with it. So there will be like 10 students that get to wear their swimming trunks that day, and the rest will need to wear their sweats and all that stuff with it. So here's my analogy with it. That simple analogy that I just gave you. There's basically 3 types of CSS. The external one is the one that controls the big population of dress code. Everybody wears suits and ties and skirts and all that stuff for the whole school. The second one is the internal embedded one. The internal or embedded one, that's the one that actually targets for the physical education class, the PE class with it. So that set of code controls only for that population of students that get to wear for their PE clothes with it. They don't have to wear class uniforms. Inside of that PE class, you can have another group with it, which is the third group, what I call is inline. And this inline population of students will get to wear swimsuits to get to swim in the pool. Now, with that 3 analogy that I just shared with you, with it, so that's the same similar analogy that I want to show you, is that there's what's called an external, all right, which is the lowest priority. Of course, you can't wear your jackets and your swimsuit, your jackets and all the stuff with it, and to jump into the pool. But that's the lowest priority in CSS with it. The next priority is what's called internal or embedded, which is second highest in the priority, which overrides the external. Of course, I use the swimming pool, the swimming group is the highest priority, is they get to wear swim trunks and swim in the pool with it. So they get the highest priority with it. So they override the embedded or internal, and they override the external with it as well. So keep in mind that the closer to the object, I hate to say use the student as my analogy, as the object, that's what you're going to be using is to override your code with other hierarchy with it. So use that analogy, that practical analogy that I just shared with you. You're going to apply it to the 3 types of CSS. All right. So in the first CSS we're going to talk about here is the external. I'm gonna. You don't have this link here. Of course, I'm building the link right here for this video. By the time you have this, you're gonna have a link in here. So this is my notes. So I put a blank here. So when I have the YouTube video, that's where it's gonna go. So it's in here that you're gonna actually build an external file. Now over in this side over here, if you notice that I created a folder with today's date. Like I said, it's arbitrary. What you want to call it, it doesn't matter. With it. So if you want to create a date on the Windows Explorer, that's fine. If you want to go in here inside of class exercise number 3 and right mouse click on it and do new folder, all right, you can do that. It doesn't matter. I created this before we started it, so I did it over in the Windows Explorer. So excuse me, let me get a drink of water. So I put everything in. I'm used to putting things in subfolders and keeping it organized and everything with it as well. But for the purpose of this exercise with it, if you want to follow along with it, I have a folder. Please don't email me and ask me a question that you have to do this, and I'm going to reply to you as it's an optional. You're welcome to do it. You don't have to. If you do, you have to be consistent across your entire class with it as well. All I'm concerned is you contain inside of the ClassEx3. Okay, that's all I care about. And I don't care how you want to subfolder this with as well. So I have a folder called 01620, which is today's date with it. I'm going to create a subdirectory in here for the purpose of discussion with it. So I'm going to right mouse click on here, do new folder under today's date. You notice it indents in, and I'm going to call this subdirectory called CSS. Lowercase CSS, and inside of this CSS that if you notice that I'm going to click on this expansion right here. I'm going to right mouse click on the CSS. I'm going to say new file. I'm going to create a new file here. All right, and I'm going to call this file. Call it styles.css. Okay, styles.css. Not okay. So hit enter. So this, if you look at this path right here, where it has it, all right, this is your student directory, whatever it is with it. This is class exercise number 3. I have a subdirectory called 091620 and a subdirectory CSS. And here is my styles CSS. All right, let me pause. Let me check on my time here. I don't want to go over the 10 minutes here, so let me pause. I'm going to continue. This is end of part 1. End of part 1.